And hello, sports fans and fans of sport. How are we doing this week, Hugh?
Good, mate. I really wanted a drink just before we got into it, and I thought with 8 seconds to go, have I got enough time to unscrew my top? I was like, yes, I have. So I quickly did that, and I just spilt a load of shit everywhere. So as per usual, consistently with us, I've ruined the intro. But yeah, apart from being a little damper, I'm doing really well, thank you, mate. I've had a cracking week. How are things with you?
Yeah, really good. Nothing of note, which is always positive. I think we're looking forward to getting back out on the golf course now. We have a date for the end of March, and I haven't swung a golf club at all. I've decided to just take a break, just out of curiosity, to see what happens. Because I'm the person who I would swing a golf club every single day. Every day. I would spend at least 15, 20 minutes in my garden at the net, or I would be at the driving range, or I would be on the course. I think I played over 100 rounds last year. So this is the first time I've taken an extended leave, and on March 29th, when Britain's allowed to go back on the course, we'll see what happens, whether I'm, sort of born again, or whether I've just absolutely made the biggest mistake of my golfing career.
Are you itching, or like, how are you feeling about that? Or it doesn't really feel like anything at the moment?
It doesn't. I've come to terms with it to the point that I'm ambivalent right now. I've set my expectations so low with COVID and my hobbies in golf that I now am just sort of like, I'll be happy when it comes around. And if anything, when golf comes around is when I've had my first proper vacation in a while. And it's coming right at the heels of golf coming back. So right now, I'm just, the less I think about it, the better I feel about it. So golf's coming back. I'm feeling good about it. I'm not like itching to get out there, but I will be itching to get out there once we're like a week out.
I mean, the weather's just picking up. I don't know about you, Sean, but I love this time of year. Like when you got the blue sky, the sun shining, nights are starting to draw out, like the flowers are coming out, birds are singing. It's my favorite time of the year. So we've had a couple of cold weeks, haven't we, in the UK? And now this past week, we've just had some really nice weather. It's like just starting to kick in. There's hope.
It's like people coming outside in Britain. It's sort of like, you go outside and you look up in the sky with confusion when you see the sun, as if it's something you've never seen before. It's almost like seeing a red moon. You're like, what the fuck is that thing? The sun. Why is it so warm? I don't get it.
It's a religion here. You then must worship it when it does show. You got to just keep talking about it and keep going outside as much as possible.
As soon as we're up 5 degrees, above 5 degrees Celsius, that's where you see shirts off and convertibles down.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out, and we're getting there, mate. So yeah, very, very exciting. So we did speak very briefly about this morning's or this afternoon's show.
Yes,
really excited to get into it today, mate. We've got some good topics.
So this week, I wanted to start before we go into. We're obviously going to be previewing the Adesanya Blachowicz fight. On my journey, and again, I'm going to say this each week to people who are new to the show. I'm new to MMA in the last couple months. Hugh, it's I guess I would say it's a passion for you, but it's your favorite professional sport.
Yeah, I love it.
And I've been sort of going down these little rabbit holes, and I think when you start looking at Adesanya and Blachowicz, I've rehearsed this I don't know how many times, fucking people and their names. But when I was going down these sort of rabbit holes, Jon Jones' name kept coming up. And whenever there was a reference of Adesanya versus Blachowicz, Jon Jones, why isn't he fighting Jon Jones? And I came across this clip of Jon Jones as sort of one of my first introductions to Adesanya, which I did more research than this. But I guess for can you give me a bit of a 411 on Jon Jones? Can you give me a beginner's guide in about 2 minutes? Go.
Okay. He's arguably one of the greatest fighters who's ever lived. So that's the first thing. 2, he's renowned for being a bit of a playboy. So he used to, I think he was on coke. He used to admit to getting absolutely smashed blackout drunk a week before a fight. He used to go out partying before fighting and then beat the crap out of people. He has got everything going for him. He's not got a weakness. He's unbelievable. He's been in controversy. So he hit a pregnant lady and then run away from the scene. He's a controversial character. He's got out of drug tests as well, which were and then got caught with what he said were dick pills because his testosterone was higher. Or there was a specific picogram measurement of something which he said was some dick pills. So it's this wonderful talent that's unbelievable, maybe the greatest ever, so well-rounded, but he's got that kind of bad boy kind of streak about him. But he's undeniable. Like him or love him, he's unbelievable in the cage. So yeah, you can't help but be kind of drawn to watching him.
He's having only seen him now, not knowing about any of this, because I only watched interviews with him. He comes across really well. He really, whenever he's being interviewed, he does a really good job of making a point and making it very well in a very short, succinct amount of time. And this was the first interview I saw. I don't know if I think I shared this with you, but I don't know if you had a chance to look at it.
I did.
I'm just going to play this so we can comment on it. So this is Jon Jones on Israel Adesanya.
Do you have an issue with Israel Adesanya?
I really don't. I really don't. I think the worst thing I ever said about the kid was that he's looking promising, and I would assume that, you know, people are going to start entertaining that fight soon, and he'll come up and challenge me. That's all I said about him. And I think he said something about killing one goat in Anderson Silva and now trying to kill me or some shit like that. And the biggest difference is that I'm 31 years old, and I feel like I am still reaching my prime. If you look back throughout a lot of my fights, you know, you hear guys who spot me and say, Jon is a lot stronger than he looks. And Israel is light in the ass. He's light. He's skinny. He's skinny. I'll put my hands on him and teach him a whole different world of hurt. For him to be so frail and to not have a ground game is like, bro, you don't want to do it. And then to talk about my stand-up against Anthony Smith with his face all bubbled up against a short wrestler that just did that to him. It was just hilarious. I barely get touched when I fight. And so for Israel to talk about his striking skills being so much farther ahead than mine, it's hilarious. Just to sum up what I think about him, I think he's a little too light in the ass. He needs to eat some more jerky chicken. Come holler at me.
You said you're.
So I'll not to let it run. So that was my introduction to Israel Adesanya. That was the first thing I saw, and it reminded me of a conversation we had last week where we were saying there aren't any fighters that, and this is a stretch, aren't like Muhammad Ali or don't have that sort of game of being able to talk. He's a good talker. Impressive talker when it comes to the trash game.
So yeah, I would agree. Like, Jon got some flack early on in his career because he's one of the youngest champions, and he was coming out with like all the like, oh, it's thanks to Jesus and this like good boy actor. People are like, what are you doing? Like, he's a part. This isn't you. And he got a lot of flack for being fake in front of camera. And people, then this comic started coming through that, look, Jon is a badass. He's got this bad boy kind of thing. Don't hide that. Like, be that. That is you. That's fine. And I think he's just been a little bit more like that. I think
embracing it.
Time in the camera, just kind of, yeah, exactly, embracing it and just running with what he truly is. But I would say he's a good shit talker. Overall, I'd say he's pretty damn solid. He had some very good points in that. I think Izzy is a technically better striker than him. Izzy has got like something like 80 pro fights in kickboxing. He is probably technically, stand-up wise, arguably the best maybe ever. And he was criticizing Jon's technique. And Jon rightly actually threw something back that he actually got into a war of attrition with a wrestler. And it was a very close fight in the stand-up. Yeah, like I actually thought he came across really well there. Very kind of laid back, very confident. I want to just add a couple of points on Jon that I didn't, because I think this was going to add to the story as well. So, little known fact, he's got two brothers, both in the NFL. So his family are like a pedigree of these like specimen athletes. So that's one thing. He is renowned for being one of the most competitive people on the planet. And to put this into context, when Khabib was demanding, I want to be number one pound for pound, when he beats Justin Gaethje, everyone was like, oh, this is quite an emotional moment for Khabib. And like, you know, we were going to laud you with praise. Jon Jones was like, hang on a minute, you can't ask for that. And he was the one person that was like, hang on a minute, like, I'm here. Like, he wouldn't allow Khabib to have his moment. So there's this, Jon is just, he's a ferocious competitor. So the fact these two are like similar heights, similar builds, they talk a bit of crap, very confident. You're like, you could, at the similar weight classes, you could, you know, Jon's right. You could see it coming to a head at some point.
Yeah. And we got Peter Chapedza saying Izzy versus Jones needs a huge crowd, and now is just not the time. So do you not see the draw for Izzy v Jones, Hugo?
Oh well, I mean, I think everyone can see it. We would love to see that, but they've not moved away from each other, but they haven't got closer. So Izzy was 185, John was 205, and John moved first. John's gone up to heavyweight. He's now supposedly weighing in at 250, and Izzy, who didn't really cut weight for middleweight, was around 185 naturally. Yeah. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what Izzy's going to weigh in at the 205 division, because there's going to be a big difference. So I don't think this is going to happen overnight. I don't think Jones, having put the work in he's done to get up to heavyweight, it's going to come down anytime soon. So it's got to happen, this fight. I'd love it to happen, but I think Izzy's going to have to go up to heavyweight. And to do that, I think he's going to have to maybe assert himself in his light heavyweight division.
Dana White, actually, I read about this. Dana White was saying that he wouldn't expect to see an Adesanya Jones fight anytime soon.
I agree with that.
And he said Jones has just moved to heavyweight, just making that move now. And Adesanya needs to really prove himself. I think this fight for Adesanya is going to be a determining factor on what his next fight will be, how he goes on, how he takes on Blachowicz. I tried. Blachowicz. Why don't we jump into that? Let's look at the Adesanya Blachowicz fight, and that means it's time for our really shitty transition.
Yeah. That's a new transition, Sean. You've been messing with that, right?
No, it's the same. You just have better internet today.
Oh, is that it? Honestly, is it just like a computer? Because that sounded different. All right, I thought you'd been messing with it. Oh, no, it worked normally.
Yeah, this is what the show sounds like to everybody who has normal internet. That's what it is. So, I think it would be best to start with your take on Adesanya Blachowicz, just because I'm going to look like an ass if I start saying something first. So if you say something smart, then I can adopt it. So why don't you lead off?
Well, mate, I can sound like an ass just like anyone. So my thoughts on this one is we're into the unknown territory, which is what I love about the UFC. You've got a guy that's naturally at around 185 going up to 205. So he's fighting someone that's technically, supposedly around 20 pounds heavy, although the gap is probably a bit closer. So how is he going to transfer to that weight class? If you get hit by someone that's 20 pounds heavier than you, you're going to feel it. So not only that, Jan Blachowicz is renowned for being like Polish power. He's knocked out some big names. He has got powerful hands. That's undeniable. Jon Jones couldn't floor. Who did he beat for the title? Who did Jan beat for the title? Can you remember his name?
Jan's last fight here. I will tell you in just a second. So Jan, website.
What was his name? God, I'm so sorry for getting his name.
Well, I'll have it in just a second. It was his last fight was Reyes.
Reyes, that's it. So Dominic Reyes,
second round,
and he looked comfortable from the get-go. Now, prior to that, Sean, Reyes' last fight was against Jon Jones. I actually think he beat Jon Jones. He put it on Jon Jones the whole time, and then Jon Jones changed tactics and then went at him and kind of clawed some round back. It was super close. I actually thought he edged it, but it was very close. John got the nod. Yeah. Now Jan Blachowicz goes up against him, and Reyes just looks shaky. I don't know whether the moment got to him, whether it's Jan's power or not, but Jan made light work of it, to be honest. So if Izzy gets caught with one of those punches, I think anyone's going to be in trouble. But Izzy tends to be very elusive. He's very hard to hit because he's so technical. So, okay, no sitting on the fence. My gut feel is I think Izzy's going to do it because he's one of the smartest fighters out there. I wouldn't be shocked if Jan catches him, and I wouldn't be shocked if that rocks Izzy because of the weight difference. But I'm still siding with Izzy.
So my view on this is it's a strange one because I'm tempted to go with what everybody who's smarter than me says. And I've listened to a lot of interviews with a lot of fighters, UFC fighters who've weighed in on it. And the vast majority, barring one, there was only one fighter I heard that really gave a stunning review of Blachowicz in this fight. I hope I'm saying that right, Blachowicz in this fight, and that was Colby Covington. Is the only person who pretty much said he's going to flat out tag him. Watching these fights, so there's a few things I noticed, and Adesanya is so much fun to watch, and the fight against Gastelum was probably one of the best fights I've ever seen in boxing. That was incredible. And as Adesanya worked his way up, you could see him getting a bit more under control, a bit more balance, and he was very in that fight against Gastelum. You could see there's a lot of I guess inefficient movement, and then when you get to his most recent fight, you could see he's really tidied that up, and he was very efficient in his final few fights. But in each of his fights, he was tagged. He has been tagged in every fight, and he does leave himself open, is what I've seen. Blachowicz, I didn't expect to come out of this feeling. I'm leaning towards Blachowicz. Blachowicz is very compact. He's very efficient. He's very calm. He's very workmanlike, and he is a knockout puncher. I mean, you can see that when he lays a hand on somebody, it's devastating. And in each of Adesanya's fights, it's taken until the only person he's really, I thought, tagged, and it took about 5 rounds to get to that point, was who was it? It was wasn't his last fight. It was a 5-rounder. It was Romero. Romero and Gastelum both win 5 rounds, but both of those, he was landing shots because he is such an incredible boxer, but it was once those shots were landing more and more, they were getting a bit more dazed and just a bit more pegged back by those, by the contact. Adesanya is not a knockout puncher, and I see one of two things happening here. Either Adesanya is going to win on points. I think if Adesanya can go the distance without being knocked out, I think he's going to have more scoring blows. I think that's going to be the case. Adesanya is very squirmy. He's very hard to even pin down. The one thing I was really impressed about is how when he's in a compromising position, he gets the fuck out. And he gets the fuck out fast. So he's very hard to pin down. I was impressed with Adesanya's underrated. And Jon Jones says he doesn't have a ground game. I was really impressed with his defense. It was against Romero, I think, where he was doing these reverse holds. He was being taken down, and he was doing these reverse maneuvers, acrobat maneuvers to get control back and almost submit somebody. But the one thing I can't get around is in every fight, Blachowicz, even in the fight that he lost, it looked like it was a bit of a random punch that caught him off balance. It didn't even look like a proper knockout to a degree. And every fight, he's taken shots and he's taken them comfortably. And when he's gotten a hold of somebody, he's tagged them. He's really put them in a daze. And there's a big part of me that's leaning towards 4th round. Blachowicz is going to knock out Adesanya because Adesanya has been made available for punches in every single fight. And I'm kind of going with my gut on this. I'm going to say Blachowicz, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but I'm going to say Blachowicz knockout in the 4th round. And what's going to happen is, in my view, sorry, I'll let you go here in a second, but I want to hear what your take is on this. So right now, actually, no, let me bring it back to you because there's something I want to bring up in a bit. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Blachowicz has a chance?
So what I love about fighting, of course he's got a chance. Like you're not world champion for nothing. Reyes beat Jon Jones. Jon Jones he went against Alexander Gustafsson, and people thought the first time they fought maybe Gustafsson beat him, but that was in John's coke days, and he wasn't training for that. They said he wasn't even going to camps. And the second best person in the world, although he got the win, he probably didn't. It was very close anyway. That's what I'm saying. Reyes was the only person I've seen that's actually, I think, technically beaten him. Now, Blachowicz ran through Reyes. I know this MMA math, and you can't just say that, equals therefore he's going to win. But, he's no mug. And I think he'll spot on. And I could totally see him landing a punch and knocking Adesanya out because of the weight difference. I could see that. I'm just thinking that Blachowicz also went up a weight class. He used to be a middleweight, and he went up, and he's found some success at that weight. I just think Izzy has been so good. He's so clever, and he fights differently every fight. And I think he's going to be very much aware of the power that Jan brings to the table. And I think he's going to be very elusive, and he's going to be looking for countering. I just think he's got the kind of intellect over him, and range-wise, I think it's pretty close. He's not a big... Jan is going to be slightly heavy, but he's not going to have any reach advantage over him. If anything, I think with Lizzie's leg attacks, he might have a slight range advantage. So my point being, that slight ramble, Sean, is that I could totally see that happening. Yeah. I don't think it's a strong Adesanya for me. I'm just leaning that way.
What's pushed me the other way, some of the people I saw interviewed for this fight was somebody who's coached Adesanya for years. Is a Kiwi guy, beard. Don't know, and he was talking about he was talking about his career, and Adesanya has always, if you were to pick fights where he's lost before UFC, his kickboxing career, it's always against bigger opponents he has had trouble with. And when you look at the fights that he's taken in his current division, he has had a pretty substantial height or reach advantage. And he's not had to really put himself in harm's way to that degree. Gastelum was the most impressive fight because Gastelum was trying to nullify that by he accepted he was going to get hit, and he wanted to get within that reach to lay some, and he almost knocked out Adesanya.
Yeah.
And when you look at the knockouts, when I've looked at the Blachowicz knockouts, they were all counter punches, or they were all like at the end of a combination or after a sloppy exchange. And he's very quick-handed when he gets in close. And I just see a world where Adesanya is not able to really get much going from a distance. I think Blachowicz is going to be quite wary of the leg kicks, and he's going to be ready to defend that. He keeps his hands up all the time, whereas Adesanya's hands are very low all the time. And I very much that's I'm going to go with my gut, but I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there. I know fuck all, and there's a part of me that says if I'm putting money on this, I'd put on Adesanya, but I'm going to stick with my gut on this because my brain keeps going back to Blachowicz winning this in the fourth.
You know, if I put money on it, I'd go the other way. If I had to put money on it, because I think
the odds anyway.
The odds in the favor, because I think it's going to be skewed towards Izzy. I've not seen that, but I think that Brendan Schaub said this, and it's always stuck with me. And I think, and it's great advice, is that when you're betting, you want to go on the heavy-handed underdog. So if you can find some people that can floor you as an underdog, he said, I always put money on that. This is a classic Brendan Schaub underdog bet to take, because Jan, I think, can surprise people. He's not got the world behind him yet. He's not in that position. So, but you don't want to sleep on him. You don't want to take him for granted. And you know what will be interesting? I want to kind of throw this in as well, Sean, was that what if Izzy does win, though? Because Jan is the champion. He's beaten the champion. So what next? Does he stay around and then take on the second best light heavyweight or the third best light heavyweight? Or does he just say, right, I'm going full hog. I'm now putting on, 20 pounds and going to meet John in the heavyweight division? Because once you've beaten the top, they haven't kind of given him any warm-ups for light heavyweight. It's straight in the deep end. So if he does beat Jan, I don't really know the next step, but
this is maybe for me and for the audience who may not know this. So let's say he wins. He is now the light heavyweight belt holder.
And middleweight, yeah. He
can hold both then. So
correct.
Adesanya can choose to pretty much hold both of those and defend both of those. Because I think that's what would happen. If he decides to, and if it was me and I was in that position and he was comfortable fighting, because I think he's going to come in around 185, 190. He's made it very clear he's not changed any part of his training or methodology, Adesanya. I could see him holding both and defending both if he feels he can equally cover both of those divisions.
Yeah, it's who's left for him at middleweight. I want to bring up the UFC rankings here because
I'll bring that up
I'm
now.
not sure how much competition is left for him. I think, look, I want to state this as well. Jon Jones has my money if those two fight, without a doubt. I'd put my money on Jon Jones because Jon Jones has got a superior advantage on the wrestling side of things. And I think as long as Jon Jones doesn't try and stand with him, Jon Jones would be a nightmare for him. So it's the wrestlers that are really going to do that. So I'm just looking through here now. I honestly think Chris Weidman would be a bad matchup for Izzy. Chris Weidman is ex-wrestler under Matt Serra. Yeah, I think he'd be a real nightmare. And Chimaev, the guy but he's having some issues. He's out of the top 15 and he's got some issues with COVID. But he basically fights like Khabib, just so you know. So someone like that is going to be, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Someone like that's going to cause Izzy some issues. I'm not sure who else is going to. I don't know who else to stay around with in that middleweight division, Sean.
I think it's difficult too because I would think a big, if let's say Blachowicz was known to be a grappler and a puncher, in my mind that would be a big indicator as to who's going to win, because we haven't seen Adesanya, and at least I haven't seen in the last handful of fights, have to get into a grappling situation more than a few minutes total. And if you were to get somebody that's superior in size, who's a superior grappler, I think that would be problematic for Adesanya, because it mitigates all of his reach and all of his skill with, his kickboxing skill. And is there anybody in the heavyweight division that meets that I guess that fingerprint, that blueprint?
Grappling, yeah. I mean, especially with just weight alone, if you're grappling someone, I mean, that's why the weight class is. And if you grapple someone of equal skill level, weight, it all comes down to weight. And Izzy is probably, his takedown defense is brilliant, very high level, I would say. But if he is taken down, his movement on the ground, I would still say, is a lower level. Like, he's getting better, and he's definitely working on it. But that is where you can see the potential weakness for him, is someone to exploit that. Now, Jon Jones has fought wrestlers. He's fought Olympic wrestlers like DC, and he actually took DC down. Like, no, DC takes everyone down, and he arguably out-wrestled DC. They say, like, Jon Jones is strong as hell. Like, but the thing is with Jon Jones, he's got this attitude, this killer instinct, this like kind of Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan brain, which is like, oh, you want to stand up? And he's actually admitted it. He said they thought they were so good at kickboxing. They were like, why don't you just take him down? We were all waiting for you to take him down. It's like, I wanted to show that I could beat him on my feet. And that might be his undoing. So if he did fight Izzy, I'd be concerned that he'd want to try and outfight him on the feet to prove that, because the way to win is for him to take him down. So my money would be on Jon Jones versus Izzy.
It's very different. Blachowicz has a very different mentality. I was watching an interview with him before, leading up to this fight.
I like him.
His mentality isn't that I am the best and I'm going to, like, he says I'm going to win. That is his expectation. But he doesn't really spend too much time worrying about the hows. He just focuses on the technique, the fight. He doesn't focus on the fact that there's a belt or what it means. He's just next man up. I'm just going to, whoever it is, I'm under contract. If they put someone in front of me, I'm going to fight him. And he's not really, he's not really worried about how it's going to look. He's just, whatever I think is going to get the job done best, that's what I'm going to do. And he came across as a very intelligent fighter as well, and very efficient in how he works. So I think it'll be a very interesting matchup.
Interesting.
This is why it's unknown territory. So for the record, for the betting, so you're saying it's going to be, you said you weren't going to be on the fence, but you haven't really. You just said Adesanya, and you didn't say round or decision or knockout. So if I could ask you to be a little less on the fence, that'd be great.
Okay, I'm going to go with Adesanya points.
That's my second choice if I got to choose. And in boxing, it's always good, or boxing or MMA, when you have two options. That's always a great way to go. I'm going to say knockout Blachowicz in the fourth, and I'm going to say to everybody who's watching this, that is going to be an unpopular choice, but I'm going to stick to my guns here.
I don't think it is, mate. I think it's I could. If I had to have three guesses, that would be one of them. I think a later round knockout when Izzy might be just a little bit off guard. So I think
he's
it's strong
in the fifth round. Adesanya in his fights in the fifth round, he has been dominant in that fifth round. I think if he can get to that fifth round, he's in.
Yeah, mate. This is what makes it so compelling. I can't wait to watch this. We've got another comment.
So Peter said, Jan has great timing, but Izzy with his hands down throughout the fight, he is going to see every strike coming, and that's a big advantage for an elite striker of his caliber. So you're the expert here. What do you think about that?
I just want to make sure I'm interpreting this right. Is he talking about Izzy is going to see every strike coming? So it's great time, but Izzy with his hands down throughout the fight he is going to see every strike coming, and that's a big.
So he's saying Adesanya is going to have better vision throughout the fight because he's not. I think when you and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think what you're saying is when you have your hands up, and that is very much the stance. You have very much a fairly static stance for Blachowicz moving forward, and he's not as able to move as when you look at Adesanya move and dodge punches. It's because he's that being open does help. That it does aid to his ability to move and sway, and those blows are glancing, which I've not heard that before. Is that something you've heard?
I'll be honest, mate. I switched off halfway through you talking that because I was rereading the so I'm just going to be
you were
real
just like, I'm not going to listen to this bullshit
blah,
from Sean. Yeah.
Whatever Sean's saying,
Yeah.
blah blah
like
blah.
I'm talking to my wife. Yeah.
I do apologize, but that's just the God's honest truth. So
I'm trying to explain it to you.
I think it's a big advantage for elite striker. Is he going to see everything? I thought he looked so unbelievable against Paulo Costa in his last fight. He looked so dynamic and fast, and I'm not sure anyone's going to put a hand on him unless you want to turn it into a grappling game. So that's where I get my opinion from. It's just how good he looked in the last fight, and I think he's just going to be too quick. Like Peter's saying here, he's just got too much of an advantage of his striking technique, and I think that power always has a chance, but I think technique will win through.
I think if Adesanya's leg kicks are really troubling Blachowicz, I think that's going to be a game changer for Adesanya. If Adesanya's leg kicks are easily kind of glanced away, if they're not really making much of a difference in that fight, then I think Adesanya's going to have to start taking some risks. Now, if he's a smart fighter, though, is he going to be playing for a knockout, or is he going to be playing for points? Because I think if I was, and again, I'm not an expert on anything, but if I was coaching Adesanya, I wouldn't want to see him get too close to Blachowicz. I'd like to see him win on points.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to go after him. I think he's going to be it's going to be counter. I think he's going to sit back. I think Jon is going to take some chopping down as well. That's why I've gone for the points decision, because I don't think he's going to knock him out. I'd be surprised to see that. Of course it can happen. I do believe he's got knockout power. I think he's shown that. And I think he could still knock a lot of people out in the light heavyweights, as he did in kickboxing at that weight. But Jon, I think, is going to take some wearing down.
He's not. I think Jan's going to be less intimidated. Not intimidated. Oh, yeah. That's not the right word. No, but I think Jan's going to be less phased. Yeah, he's not going to be. Whereas I think Costa a bit was taken back a bit in that fight. I rewatched that fight, and it looked like he felt like he was in a bit over his head. Not that he really believed that, but I think there was a little bit of doubt that creeped into his head after a few of those leg kicks. And I think he lost it mentally. Yeah. Yeah. I think Blachowicz, he's so sound mentally. You know, he's not at all going to go into that ring with the same kind of nerves that maybe Acosta went into it.
The term you use, which I love, and I think it's so accurate, is that workmanlike. He just shows up, do my job. Like, he's going to give you a fight. Like, he'll be professional. He'll be trained. He'll be, he's going to be on it. You're going to have to be on your game to beat him. And he's going to take some wearing down. That's for sure.
Well, next week we will find out who was right about it. I'm really looking forward to next week's show, where we are going to be breaking it down, seeing how things go for both Adesanya and Blachowicz. And we'll probably have something to talk about as far as what's next, because Dana White is not one to shy away from prognosticating his thoughts. So we'll probably hear a bit of a insight into what he sees coming next. So shall we move on to the next topic? So we're going to move on to, everybody's watching this for MMA, we're going to be moving on to just general sport. And I saw an article this week. I just thought it would be a good talking point for us, given it's a bit of a departure from, well, not a bit of a departure, a bit of a return to our old channel, the Bearded Philosophy channel. And Zlatan Ibrahimovic hits out at LeBron James for getting involved in politics. Now, I think that's a bit of a dramatic headline. I don't think he's hit out. I think he's just got a point of view that, and he even says, I like him. I like James a lot. He's phenomenal, but I don't like when people with status speak about politics. Do what you're good at doing. If I play football because I'm the best playing football, I'm no politician. If I'd been a politician, I would be doing politics. This is the first mistake famous people do when they become famous. For me, it's better to avoid certain topics and do what you're doing. I also actually have here LeBron responding to that. So I thought I'd play that, and we can have a chat about this.
Yeah, I'd like to see this.
I would never shut up about things that's wrong. I preach about my people, and I preach about equality, social injustice, racism, systematic voting, voter suppression, things that go on in our community. Because I was a part of my community at one point and seeing the things that was going on, and I know what's going on still, because I have a group of 300 plus kids at my school that's going through the same thing, and they need a voice. And I'm their voice. I'm their voice, and I use my platform to continue to shed light on everything that may be going on, not only in my community, but around the, this country and around the world. So, if there's no reason, well, no, I won't say no reason, but there's no way I will ever just stick to sports, because I understand how, how this platform and how powerful my voice is. And he can just ask Renee Montgomery, if I would have shut up and just dribbled, seeing that beautiful Black woman today, be a part of a group where she's part of an ownership group now with the Atlanta Dream down in Atlanta. And it's funny he say that, because I believe in like 2018, he was the same guy who said when he was back in Sweden, talking about the same things, because his last name wasn't a certain last name, that he felt like it was some racism going on when he was out on the pitch. Right? He did say that, right? Yeah. I thought he said that. So I speak from a very educated mind. I'm kind of the wrong guy to actually go at, because I do my homework.
Your time will come when I say
so. That is
at some point you guys will
hold
fight.
on, hold on. I've got some technical issues. What's going on? I don't even know where that's coming from. Where is that? Oh, you know what that is? That's the Jon Jones.
Him fighting me.
I can't find it.
Yeah.
There it is.
You got it?
I got
Shut
it.
that down, Shona. Shut that down.
So we need a production team. That's what we need.
We do.
Yeah. And we need a budget for a production team. I think we should start there.
And some good Wi-Fi from this end.
Gotta say, your Wi-Fi has been impressive today.
Mate, don't curse it. Let's just keep rolling quickly before it goes.
So I found this to be an interesting conversation. Just the idea that whether professional athletes should or should not. Zlatan is somebody, we've spoken about this before. He's grown on me because I thought he was an absolute prick because of his arrogance. And his arrogance has so much style to it, and he's such an A-type personality that just delivers everything he says. No matter what, you have to respect that about him. Lebron is an equally impressive individual, and from my experience growing up in the United States, he went straight out of high school, so he skipped, I guess, what here in the UK would be A levels. It's relative to A levels, maybe. He didn't go to university. But he's not really lived in any sort of professional existence. And I think in university, you get some level of that to a degree. So he's really gone from high school to professional sports, and he's been sort of mollycoddled as one of the next comings. And what impresses me about LeBron is he is an intelligent guy. I don't think anybody would argue that. And LeBron has had to sort of, teach himself. He's had to grow up himself. He's had to mature himself in an environment that I would think is really difficult for adult human beings to become intelligent, mature individuals. What's your take on that sort of back and forth?
Yeah, it was really interesting actually, because you know what? There's I really like both angles of it, just straight up. So let's just talk about Ibrahimovic. I love the fact that I actually think that I like Ibrahimovic's point. I think he went for the wrong person. So there are a lot of people out there, and you could put us amongst it. Well, we're not big and famous, but people that are expressing their opinion that they're ill-informed, right? And they're maybe doing it for less kind of moral reasons or ethical reasons that they might be putting out. It's a self-promotional thing, and they're trying to get their face out there, or just trying to say what people think that they should be hearing. And just shut up. I'm not interested in hearing that. But if someone is like LeBron is right there, that has background as something that's truly important to them, of course you shouldn't suppress that. And he's got every right to share his, opinion on what he's working towards. He's informed. He wants to share that with the world. But I kind of like Ibrahimovic's, look, people just stick to what you're good at. They stop pretending to get involved with all this kind of complicated stuff when you don't really fully understand it. But maybe he should have targeted someone else. So that's my honest thought.
It might. I didn't realize there was listening to LeBron, and I'll be honest, I haven't researched the Zlatan angle as to whether he did speak out politically in Sweden.
My other half Swedish, so that was something that came through. He did. He's not Swedish, but he's not born in Sweden, I should say. So because of his angle and because of the way he is, like you said, you thought he was a real arrogant guy. Well, my mother-in-law hates him. Because of the way he is. And there are a lot of Swedish that he's Marmite. He's not a very stereotypical Swedish person either. He's not born in Sweden. He's not got a Swedish name. But people love him for what he can do on the pitch, but they don't like his attitude. So he has suffered some negative press because of the way he puts himself about.
I think this is we're not going to get into the debate as to whether it is or isn't, but to me, this is very much, it highlights some of that debate on white privilege, and where LeBron feels he's in a position that he has to do something because of, in his view, systematic racism. He's now in a position of power to help bring his community up. And I don't know that Zlatan, and this is where, you know, people that maybe don't understand racism or don't understand white privilege. And again, I'm not getting into the conversation whether white privilege is a thing or not, but I think there is an argument to be made that Zlatan, he went after the wrong person because he doesn't really understand why LeBron is doing what he's doing, whether he agrees with it or not. And to the point that, you know, famous people making political statements, yeah, there's people that I don't want to hear making those statements, but I also don't want people to be censored. And if you have a platform, you have every right to use it for whatever you think is best. And in most cases, when people are creating a platform for themselves, it's with good intention. They want to make positive change. Fine. I have no problem with that. I have more respect, though, for people that make change quietly. So whenever you see, if I was famous and I had money and I did something for, let's say, I don't know, foster children, I wouldn't bring a camera crew with me to do the work that I'm doing. Now, I understand that famous people have camera crews that come whether they like it or not. But there are, I find it quite cringy when people do things that are good with their platform and they do it as a bit of a self-promotion tool. And that's where I think Zlatan would have been focused on. Just shut up and you know, act and do your thing. Let's not get involved in an area that we don't want to hear your opinion about. And I think that's how we all feel with some people.
Yeah. Did you watch the Golden Globe? I think we're in total agreement, mate. Yeah. Did you watch the Golden Globes with Ricky Gervais?
No, I don't watch any of that.
I don't watch any of it either.
No.
But if you put in YouTube like Ricky Gervais,
yes,
he absolutely rinses people, and like he said, look, you know, and he's half joking, which is why it's funny. But just no one cares what you think. You know, this is just a stupid little medal. Like it's only you that really cares about it. Just come up, you know, say your thank yous and move on. We don't want to hear about your politicians because you're all as bad as each other, kind of like, and rinsing them really for that. And I think a lot of people stand there and it's very cringeable and they feel almost pressurized to say something. And I'm not sure the level that they're qualified or educated to talk about it. So I kind of like what Zlatan's saying to a degree. Like he's calling out those people. But going back to that point, I think LeBron is someone that, you know, has some substance behind him. So maybe angled at the wrong person. But yeah, I think we're in full agreement there, Sean.
Yeah, and we'll have to go back to that Ricky Gervais thing at some point. I agree with you. I think the one thing that I always struggled with that bit was Ricky Gervais was making a point about not sharing your views whilst he was sharing his views publicly with you know, unadulterated freedom. So it's I do like Ricky Gervais though, and I think there's times where Ricky Gervais is a bit Marmite to me, but I think he's a genius as a comedian goes, as a writer goes. So I liked how he made those Hollywood elites quite uncomfortable, and I like the Hollywood elites that can smile and laugh and not take it too personally.
Yeah,
you know, exactly. I think that's
comedy.
That's what it is at the end of the day. So where are we at for time? We're at 43 minutes.
Got our picks.
Well, we should go into picks. Yeah. So I'm just setting up. Let's do our weekly picks. That to me looks like the most professional transition.
Yeah, because I think that's my favorite.
Yeah, I would too. It's not the best, but I think it's my favorite because of how it's put together. So let's take a look at how things are going this week. You are absolutely smashing me. I think we have tried and abandoned the weird ESPN picks. But here's where we're sitting right now. So I've not highlighted the actual scores. You know, where we've gotten it right, I've given points, and there's one result here that you've actually nailed. So you nailed the City, Gladbach. I was only off by a goal. I'm sure there was I was a whisker away from having those 3 points on multiple occasions, if memory serves. But you are smashing me because of this 4-pointer right here.
Well, I think there's 7 points in it, Sean. So I don't think it's.
Well, yeah, but
the 4 points is the difference.
3 points, 3 points, and 7 points are very different. But it's early doors. So what I've got here is I've got picks ready for the next week. So I've picked a game each day. I'm not going to do every game. I just picked the games that I thought were the most interesting. And we have our scoreboard right here. So right now, and what I've done is I've got the scores predicted as well. I think that'll be an interesting thing to keep tabs on as to who's the best prognosticator. Because anybody can get it right or wrong. It's to what degree you get it right or wrong is what's impressive. So let's start. Leicester, Man United. How do you see this one playing out?
Leicester Man United, that game isn't happening. You mean Chelsea Man United, I think.
Did I get that wrong?
Or yeah, you did get it wrong. It's Leicester are playing right. Yeah, they're playing. No, they're playing in 10 minutes. So it's Leicester versus.
Let me bring up the schedule.
It's Chelsea Man United at 4:00 today.
Fuck. You know what it was?
Leicester Arsenal is the other one. That's
Leicester.
The other one.
So I think it was Leicester Arsenal. Yeah, should have really addressed that.
They're already playing. They're already playing though.
Do you know what the score is?
I just checked. So I think let's go for the United Chelsea because we have that's unbiased then.
So let's do that. Sorry about that, Hugo.
That's all right, mate.
But Man United Chelsea.
Man United versus Chelsea. Yeah, I don't know which way it is around who's home and away, but we know what it is.
We'll figure it out. Let me just check that actually. Premier League.
I fancy this one for United actually. Yeah, you keep looking for that in the background. I'm going to talk and do Phil.
It's Chelsea, Man United. So Chelsea are home. I don't know if that means anything anymore.
That does for me actually, because the away record is just so good for us as well. And I think I don't know. I just I can't legislate for it. I just fancy we're going to do that. I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be a 1-0 or a 2-1, but you're going to need more specifics, aren't you? So which one am I going to go with?
Well, you have to go score.
Let's go for 1-0 United.
1-0 United. I'm actually going to say 2-1 Chelsea. I think Chelsea are going to win this one. So next up, we have I think United haven't. Their form hasn't been amazing as of late. Chelsea seem to have sort of hit a bit of a rhythm here. I think they're starting to take on the principles of the new manager. I definitely see this being slightly edged towards. I think it's going to be a good game either way. I think it'll be a very good game.
So Everton Southampton.
You love Southampton.
Yeah, well, I also think Everton have got a really solid team there at home as well. So I think I'm going to edge Everton, and I think I'll go for 2-0 actually on this. Again, I haven't done any research on this, but that's my gut.
I'm actually going to go Everton. I think they've been scoring. I'm going to say 2-0. What did you say?
2-0 Everton.
I'm going to go with that as well. So I guess we nullify that one because it's not going to make a difference. We just need to remove that one. Yeah. Well, let's keep it there anyway, just to see, just so that we can see how. Keep it there. City Wolves. Do Wolves have any chance in this?
They've always got a chance. I mean, City are just such a tear at the moment.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be going with a 2-0 or a 3-0. Let's go for 3-0.
I'm going to say 3-1.
Okay.
I think there's a goal in it for Wolves.
So what I'll do with Southampton, if you go 2-1 Southampton, then we've got some. I could be. That's you, mate.
What? So you want? Me. Okay, I was about to give you shit for telling me to go 2-1 for my score.
Oh no. Yeah, you put me down for 2-1. I could see that.
Okay. Crystal Palace United. So we're going back to United again. It was the most
as a United fan, mate. It really depends on how we play this game. It's just we seemingly can't have a run of games where we're playing the same. Like, so for example, if we play awful and we lose to Chelsea, I'd almost guarantee we're going to beat Crystal Palace. If we steam past Chelsea this afternoon, I think we're going to have an awful game against Palace. That's really what I think. So Peter is. Can you put Peter's comments up, because he's just done a prediction about United, which is a very interesting point of view as well. Thank you, Peter. Mate, I hope you're right. I really do hope you're right on this.
I'm going to put that down, Peter. If you watch next week, we're going to add you to the list here to see.
Put him on.
Yeah.
Have you shown that on the screen, Sean, so everyone can see it?
Yeah. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah, Thank you. Peter's going in hard on the Man United win there.
Let me move that to
Peter, let me encourage Peter to, just for fun, Peter, put the rest of them down, mate. Go run through. We've got Chelsea. You got it in the wrong place, Sean, as well.
Yeah, I do. I'm just getting. Yep.
So as Sean's going to put that up top, Peter, go through Everton, Southampton, City, Wolves. Let us know, and let's just add you in for this week. Let's have a bit of fun and get another opinion on it. We give you credit for getting the right side of the result, home, away, or draw, and you get additional credit for getting the score correct. Okay, so we'll let you catch up, and we'll update everyone once you've done that. But I'm going to have a look at Crystal Palace United. So yeah, back to my point. I think it very much depends on how we play. I'm worried that if we beat Chelsea, we'll have an appalling game against Palace, and I think if Chelsea beat us, look out Palace, because we'll run through them. So I really want to fill this in tomorrow. No, I'm going with a United win now. So therefore, I think that could be 1-1. I think it's gonna, or a Palace win, but I'll go 1-1.
I actually think this is going to be a comfortable United win. I think Palace have just been all over the shop. I think United are trending in the right direction. Even though they haven't won every game, I think they're heading in the right direction. I'm going to say a 2-0. I'm going to say a 0-2.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, my multitasking coming to pass. So Thursday, 4th of March, we have Liverpool v Chelsea.
Yeah, again, it's difficult when you're doing it in the same game week, because you want to see how they respond. Like if Chelsea lose, say 4-0 to United, like how are they going to come back from that? Liverpool, I thought were going to come back against Everton, and they did not. They're still going to be a real threat, but I think I'm going to edge Chelsea again. Chelsea, I'm hoping, are going to lose against us. They're going to come up and really give Liverpool a game. There is a draw, of course. Do you have a result on this one, Sean, whilst I'm stalling?
So which one? Sorry, result on...
Do you know what you're going with? Are you just...
No, I was actually just sort of thinking about it. I was just looking at the last result for Liverpool.
Liverpool are going to come back. Like people thinking, yeah, okay, they're probably now not going to win the league, and they're probably now fighting for top 4, but they can put a hit on anyone. Like we're just waiting for them to bounce back. So is this game going to be it? Is the question.
I'm going to say 1-1.
Okay, Sheffield United tonight. So again, that's going to be another interesting one to see how that's impacted. I'm going to take him to beat Chelsea, actually. Yeah, let's go 1-0 Liverpool. Let's back them.
1-0 Liverpool. All right, so we've got our picks for next week. And again, for everybody watching this, it is 3 points for every correct score predicted, 1 point for every correct result predicted. So right now, Hugh is up 10 to... Why is that saying 0 up there? Oh, because this is a new setup. Okay, so I see what's going on. Just need to make sure that that's correct. There we go. We haven't figured that out yet. So yeah, we'll see how we get on next week. We'll definitely have time for the picks. And there was only one other thing that we actually have time for. I do have on the back burner. And it was just a clip that I saw recently this week. I saved it and just wanted to get your take on it. Okay. And it was an interview with a football super agent regarding salary caps. So I'm just going to bring up the quote here, and I just want to get your take on it as far as the idea of football introducing a salary cap. So I'm just buying time whilst I get this on the screen and just talking, because I do have it ready.
Oh, it's that Mino guy, isn't it? Right? Yeah.
Does it anger you that the public perception of you and your colleagues, your agent rivals, is one of greed and excess and contributing to the problems that the game is facing?
Of course it bothers me. I would be lying if I say it wouldn't bother me. But I learned, and that was 25 years ago also, I learned to say, listen, the only thing that is important is, for me, is the people that really can judge me. And people that really can judge me are people that I work with, work for, and that really know day to day what I'm doing for them or not. How can you judge if I was a good agent for Ibra? The only one who can judge that is Ibrahimovic himself. Because in my case, for example, if I'm talking to my personally, all my players are free to leave every day. They don't sign a document. So
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here.
They stabilized anybody at the end because they had a fantastic run, and they were even first for a period now in the league. Big players like Paul Pogba, you think, or Solskjaer that won everything in his life, that he really gets destabilized by what Mino Raiola says. Wow, if I would have this.
So I want to jump up. Sorry, I thought I had a different clip saved there, but he effectively talking about, and I'll just read about it in the article here. So apologies. Where was it? So hailed the English Football League's recent withdrawal of proposed salary caps, players after the tribunal saying it was a logical victory, and agents are preparing to go to court over FIFA's ridiculous plans for regulation of their activities. I think in football here, I do think there's an argument to be made for salary caps, especially given that football here is a business and it's disassociated from a league to a certain degree because every football league is an independent business that's struggling to keep up. Do you think there's any room for a salary cap in football?
So can you just confirm there, mate, what the guy was suggesting? Is the agent stating there should be a salary cap, or is he saying there shouldn't be?
He doesn't think there should be any restrictions. I think there's a few things that people are saying about agents being a bit of a parasite, and they're pushing the game and pushing these clubs too far by pushing salaries to a point where they're not sustainable. And he's saying he's doing what's best for the players that he's working with, and they don't consider him a parasite. And he thinks that any restriction on clubs as far as limiting salaries, and of course he's going to say that, is problematic. And it's something that in English Football League's EFL recent withdrawal of a proposed salary cap for players. And I think the EFL were looking at this as, do we need to regulate clubs so they're not, similar to Aston Villa almost got in trouble a few years ago with their wages being too high. They had to be taken over. Somebody with money had to come in to sort of save the day. And there are football clubs like Bury, for example, recently that have gone under. They're no longer in existence. And part of it is down to the wages for them to try to compete in the EFL. And that extends into the Premier League. And I think the idea of a salary cap, the idea behind it, not my view, is to protect clubs from being put in a position in order to compete, to have to bring in these big wage players so they can make that next step, so they can get that remuneration in the next level.
I don't think I've got that strong an opinion of it, to be honest. I don't think that it's necessarily ruining the game. I think, you're speaking to someone that I would class myself as a small business owner and entrepreneur. So I would want as much freedoms as possible for people to make those calls and live by their mistakes and be responsible for that. I don't believe that teams have to go in and spend bucket loads of money to get the biggest players to stay up. There are a number of teams that have proven that you can get by and compete and at least stay in the Premier League without spending big. You can spend smart and look at team development. And I mean, look at Burnley, for example. It's not like they're flooded with money, but they haven't had any really major big signings, but they've just got a great team and a great manager that has kind of kept them in the mix. Admittedly, it's been close, but there's proof enough that you don't have to have major spending to succeed. So, I take the point that it can make life difficult when you drop down, but I think that's all part of managing business. You've got to be prepared for that if you're heading down that direction, and you may need to look at selling players or offloading players to kind of get some money back in. But no, I don't know. It's my concern with it is that, look, that you've got this is like a £1 billion industry. So do you honestly think that setting a salary cap is going to stop teams from manipulating their way to getting big signings and buying them houses and paying for stuff for their wives and their family and doing things under the table? That's not really, I don't think you're really going to solve anything. They're going to carry on. This is like this is business in the end of the day, and the biggest players are going to attract the biggest demands, and those clubs will do whatever they can to get a hold of them. So if it's not a salary, it'll be something else. So I'm not convinced it's really going. I don't think it's going to fix anything. It's kind of like, I will put a plaster over this crack and I think that'll fix it. Well, you know, I don't think that's. I think it's a much more complicated issue than that, and there are ways around it. And I'm not solely convinced it's going to stop what you're trying to stop it.
What if, and I haven't really shared my opinion. I'm not really sure where I sit on it, but I think it is feasible because there are concerns about Barcelona, for example, and their spending. That a club like Barcelona, is it possible that a club like Barcelona could go under? And I think the concern is these owners come and go, and they don't really worry about the, you know, their custodialship. I don't know if that's the right word to the club. You know, the brand. You know what that means to them. It's just another investment at the end of the day. Do you think that there's any concern about owners coming, spending that money, taking their shot, and then just walking away, you know, with another lost business? You know, they'll sell the club and collect their losses and move on. But Barcelona would no longer exist.
So again, I don't know. Hands up, I don't know what I'm talking about. This is me like hearing stuff through the grapevine as well. But my understanding is when you look at Barcelona and Real Madrid in particular, they get funded by quite a large proportion of like from government and for the people and for the supporters around them. So that they actually have large, like the government get involved with those clubs. That's how they have so much money. The Real Madrid Galacticos, the president will be, you know, promoted based on who he's going after. So they're like it's more than just the club itself and the finances. So that's a different level of issue as well. You've got the Roman Abramovich multi-billionaire, and you've also got people that are funded by the people. So I'm like, is that a concern? I think for the supporters, absolutely. Like as a Man United fan, I very much felt that with the Glaziers coming in and putting us in, you know, hundreds of millions of pounds of debt. But how well has it served us? Well, we won championships with it, and we're still one of, if not the richest club in the world. Like we're always up there still. So it's moving in the right direction. So yes, I think it could be a concern, but as long as a business they have the rights to purchase that, then why not? I just don't believe in stopping it, and there's always a way around it anyway.
Well, one thing that I think, and I think that's a really good point, and I don't know where I sit on it from a business side. I get the whole protecting the businesses, protecting more of those. You know, Stoke isn't in the Premier League anymore, but a club like Stoke who are a bit back and forth, or Fulham, or even Villa, who are back and forth right now, making sure that they're not put in a position where those clubs are out of business and are done. I don't really know how I feel about that because, you know, when you look at those larger clubs, they have advantages by having support of, let's say, the city or the government. But it's more along the lines of competition, because if you look at the NFL, you look at even baseball, where they don't really have a salary cap, but they do have spending limits, or the NBA. The idea isn't necessarily about protecting the business to a degree. It's about keeping competition alive. And the one thing I don't understand, as somebody who's been following the Premier League for about 14 years religiously, is if I was the fan of a club like Burnley, what am I rooting for year in and year out? Now, Leicester kind of answered that question a few years ago by winning the Premier League as a smaller club. But the idea of a salary cap in America is about parity, is what they call it. It's about making sure that the competition is benefiting the best teams, not the ones with the most money. And now baseball, it's a bit more business-like. But would you see any advantage to having more opportunity for clubs like Burnley to compete with that of Man United? Because I don't think a salary cap would impact Burnley as such, but I think it would limit the resources Man United would have to go with.
And then find a way around it again. I just don't see it being suddenly it's going to stop people. I'm convinced they will find that they've got too many intelligent people that can kind of work their way around it somehow. What I think on the topic, which I was just quite trying to quickly Google, I haven't found it here, Sean, was Gary Neville made a brilliant point on the Premier League standings and the payments and the inequality in that, and that he thinks that the best teams should get paid the most. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He was going through what you win for coming first and what you get for like finishing down the table, and then what the clubs get in the for winning the championship. And it's unbelievable, the discrepancy. it doesn't make that much sense. I can't find the numbers, unfortunately, but the vast chunks of the money are going to those top lot, and then it just runs straight off the back, and it's like they're suffering for going down, and the Championship clubs aren't getting enough money and credit for winning and going up, and to get a bit more of a boost. So I think it should be unequal, but that gap should be closed. Yeah. So to that end, that's where I think that's the type of thing I think you could look at and try and make things a bit fairer. As far as salary caps, I think it's down on that person. We had Sanchez that came from Arsenal, and he was reputed in, I think, 300 plus grand a week. Like it was one of our worst signings. We got him for like 20 mil, which I think was a steal at the time at the price. I was delighted with it, but I mean, what a letdown as a Man United fan. He did barely anything and just drained a wage. So it's not. It's again, it doesn't A equals B. It doesn't mean that you're paid a lot, you're going to be brilliant. And actually, I've seen a number of big players paid a lot of money and they kind of like step off the pace a little bit. It's almost like, I've made it. It's not quite the same now. So it's not always an advantage to get that. It's not a guarantee that person's going to turn it on and transform your club.
I don't agree with that as such, because I think you have the opportunity, or United has the opportunity, to take that chance and pay wages that another club may have the resource to pay, but don't want to take that risk. So the value or the risk return for United or for Chelsea or Arsenal I guess Arsenal would be considered, or Real Madrid, Barcelona, are quite different, because the risk is a lot less, if the reward doesn't come to pass. And for me, I don't necessarily have a problem. I don't have a problem with there not being salary caps, but I don't have a problem with the induction of a high-level salary cap just to close that gap. But I think if something were to happen, it would have to happen universally, because all of these teams compete in the Champions League. And if I'm a fan of United or City, I don't want to have a salary cap in the Premier League if I then have to go and play Barcelona in a Champions League final with my limited resource. But I don't think, if, let's say, you were to limit, I guess what I don't understand is why clubs, you would think that they would be the richer clubs. If there was some high level salary cap for them, it still wouldn't impact the fact that they could still pay high level wages more so than any other club. And for me, what it does is it sort of puts a little bit of a break on it, because it's not a business to a degree. It's a competition. So the reasons I struggle with Formula One are down to the similar reasons sometimes I struggle with if I was a United fan. I would struggle being a United fan because you have resources. You're always going to be in the top six, and when you're not, it's a terrible thing. It's unheard of if you're not competing at that top level. And in F1, you have, the likes of who is it? Mercedes. They're always going to be one, at the top, because they have the best resource. Yeah. When I watched, and I was never a car racing fan majorly. I like car racing. Indy cars are all the same spec. I love that. You're finding out who is the best team, who is the best, who has the resources to hire the best engineers, the best people to make the resources we have work. I find that a compelling competition. I'm more proud of my team when they win. Now, a Burnley, if they get through, let's say, to top six, that is, incredible. That has got to be sort of just incredible as a Burnley fan. But you just don't see that happening with the level of resource they have because of the lack of a speed break at the top. I'd be open to that idea of just limiting that a little bit. So it's not just like, I'll just buy whatever player I want and I'll throw as much money as I can at it and just inflate the marketplace for those bottom teams. It just seems a little bit unfair.
Yeah, I just think that's the way. I'm not a big fan of the fairness thing when it comes to sport and competition. Just get after it, like raise your game, be better, like train harder. It's not all about money. That's my point. Is there are so many other things you can do without money, and I appreciate that money is a massive advantage, but we can't just sit on that excuse. There are ways around it, and Leicester, as much as anyone, have proven that you do not need the money to win a Premier League. It was an outstanding achievement, and there should
you don't think that's an anomaly. You think that's
it's in the minority
that is possible.
Look, it wasn't a fluke. You can't win the Premier League by luck. Like you to go through 38 games and win the league, it was unbelievable with the teams that they were up against. So they've proven that they can do it consistently. So they've just shown it can be done. And you've got teams like Leeds coming up and Burnley, we mentioned, that have been in the top flight for a well-established time now. They're proven they can do that. So I just want to lead on to a good counterpoint here, Sean, is that we haven't talked here about sign-on bonuses. So when you go down the salary cap, well, okay, then I'll pay 300 million for you, so you get a 50 million sign-on bonus. Like there's a way around it. So players get sign-on bonuses, and then agents get a cut of that. So are you then saying that there's got to be a cap on that as well? What about, okay, let's get around it. You're a striker. We're now going to commission you for £100,000 a goal or whatever. Like, make the numbers up, whatever it is going to be. You're a goalkeeper. You get incentivized for clean sheets. You get extra money. Okay, we'll do a low sign-on bonus and a low salary, but you're going to get all your money weighted on like a commission element. So yeah, this is what I mean. And then you've got like, well, in your contract, we'll put like a house on there. So we'll buy you a £5 million house guaranteed. We'll give you a maid service and all these things where it comes in. So it's not, you're not going to fix it is my point. I'm absolutely convinced that one thing is you're going to have to look at everything. And I think it's going to get very convoluted and actually money helps success. It's a resource, but it doesn't equal success. It doesn't give you the right. And there are so many people that have proven that they can, what's that Moneyball? There are people that they're clever, that you need to be innovative, and have changed the way of business. Like the Oakland A's, where they went on that the world record for the number of wins, actually made everyone sit back and pay attention to stats. And unfortunately, the Oakland A's then were nowhere to be seen because everyone copied them. But they elevated the game because they needed to be innovative. So if you're putting I think there's a lot of good that can come from people having to think outside the box and do things differently.
Yeah. And I don't think a salary cap, though, would necessarily change that at all. And I think salary cap, you're still talking about the richer clubs will be able to spend more money. I think you're looking at this inflated market for British talent in the Premier League because the need to bring in British talent. I think you just want to maybe shorten that gap a bit. So when I'm watching Sheffield United play City, I'm not just like, no, I'm not going to watch that because it's a waste of my time. There's going to be some level of competition there because we are shortening that gap a bit. And it's one of those things where in football, I find that we always give football a pass because something works in every other league. It doesn't work in the Premier League. And I don't know that I agree with that, but at the same time, I think what I have to acknowledge is the Premier League is a business, and it's unlike anything else where, the NFL, it's not comparable because it is, you own a team, you're invested into part of a franchise where you have to follow the rules to a certain degree, similar to being an IndyCar team where you have a specific specification. You can own a team, but that team has to work within a specific specification. Yeah. And I think what draws people to football is the fact that it is fairly open. I just have concerns that, I think a small speed break isn't the end of the world. I don't know whether I'm on the fence a bit on this one, but I'm not necessarily opposed to it. And I could see it being a good thing as far as these smaller market teams having an opportunity to maybe have a little bit more of a say. Because I do think the data is quite incredible as to the teams with resource versus the teams without, like substantially. But you made I think it's a good point, though. There are ways around it, and with signing bonuses and houses. So we'll have to see how that progresses. I'd like to come back to this conversation if it does come to pass.
Yeah, interesting topic, though, right?
Yes, it is a very interesting topic. So, Hugh, we're coming up to that time again. Exciting time this week for us because we are going to be launching this as a podcast, which is kind of what we wanted to start doing, but we didn't really have the resource for it. I think we've kind of figured it out. So right now we should be launching. Keep an eye out. I'll maybe put a little video or something on the social media side of things, just so you can see what our social media is. We have Twitter, Periscope, Bearded Philoso 1. Actually, I need to change this because we've changed our brand as well as Bearded Sports. So we're still new with this channel. It's weird to think about it because we've moved from Bearded Philosophy, which is now Bearded Reviews, to Bearded Sports. Because we enjoy talking about this so much. But I'll put out there the social so you know where to find us on podcast, on YouTube. So it'll be Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, and I believe Google to start. So keep an eye out. Hugo, good time this week, mate.
Yeah, you too, buddy. I really enjoyed it.
All right, well, everybody, we'll be back same time next week, and we'll be previewing Adesanya Blachowicz.
Yes. Can't wait.
We'll see everybody next week.
See you guys.